Hi everyone, Trish Triumpho Sullivan here, and I'm going to talk to you for just a minute about how to freeze motion with your shutter. And you'll notice I started a little chart here with different actions that you might want to photograph: a person walking slowly, a person walking fast, running, a bicycle rider, a bicycle race, motocross, Indy car race with curves, or an Indy car race straight. Now I started filling some of these in, but I just want to talk to you for a moment about this because I think this is important. And so this, how to freeze motion is always talking about your shutter speed, because your shutter speed is the control on your camera that can help you to describe motion in a still photograph. And that's kind of exciting because that's one of the tricks that we always want to be able to do with our cameras, is how to freeze motion, and it can be very dramatic and fun. And there's other ways to describe. We're going to talk about this more, but I want you to have this chart because I think it's really important, a little cheat sheet to help out, so you can refer to it. So write it down, keep it with your notes. You'll notice these are feet. So 10 feet, 25 feet, 50 feet, and 100 feet are the distance of the subject from the photographer. And we'll talk about how to focus for that too, because there's a way you can focus on your lens. It'll tell you distances. So you can actually pre-focus by guessing, okay, about 10 feet away, about 25 feet away, about 50 feet away, and you could pre-focus your lens, your lens, so that you can have whatever you're photographing in sharp focus, obviously. And we'll go into that a little bit more. But this is just a little chart for you. So a person walking slowly, if they're 10 feet from you, you can freeze motion at 1/125th of a second. If they're 25 feet away, you can freeze motion at 1/60th of a second. If they're 50 feet away, you can freeze motion at 1/30th of a second. And I would say the same for 100 feet away, because 1/15th of a second is pretty iffy to keep your camera from shaking. So a person walking fast, at 10 feet away, you can freeze motion at 1/250th of a second. At 25 feet, you can freeze motion at 1/125th of a second. At 50 feet from the distance, at 1/60th of a second, and 100 feet at 1/30th. Someone's running, you can actually freeze motion at 1/500th of a second if you're 10 feet away. 1/250th if you're 25 feet away. 1/125th if you're 50 feet away. And if you're 100 feet away, 1/60th of a second. Same with a bicycle rider. Close by, if he's 10 feet away, or he or she is 10 feet away, or they, then we have 1/500th of a second. 25 feet away, 1/250th. 50 feet away, 1/125th. And 100 feet away, 1/60th. Okay. In a race, it's going to be a little different. A bicycle race, if you're 10 feet away, you're going to want your shutter speed at 1/1000th of a second. And then the same for 25 feet away, you'll be using 1/500th. 50 feet, 1/250. And 100 feet, 1/25th. Motocross, you'd have to start at 1/2000th of a second to freeze motion when you're 10 feet away. An Indy car race with curves, you'd have to start with 1/3000th of a second if you're 10 feet away. And if it was a straight race, in other words, the cars are just going straight, like a drag race, you'd have to, and you're 10 feet away from the cars, which is pretty darn close, right, for a car race, you'd have to have your shutter at least at 1/4000th of a second, which is really fast. Some cameras don't even go that high. But this is a really great chart to help you to learn how to freeze motion. I would definitely write it down. And you'll notice that the closer you are, the faster your shutter speed. Okay? And there's a reason for that, because the closer you are, the motion takes up a larger portion of the frame of your camera, right? So it's much larger in your frame, and so you have less time to capture it. That's pretty much it. you'll notice, and I think we talked about this in another lecture, when something is really far away, even if it's moving very quickly, it seems like it's moving very fast. So when you're, like for instance, an airplane in the sky, it's probably going anywhere from 200 to 500 miles an hour. But if you're looking up at that little tiny dot, it seems like it's really moving slowly. It's just inching across the sky so slowly. No problem to freeze motion. You could probably do it with your shutter speed at like 1/30th of a second. It would look like it was standing still in the sky, right? Because it's so far away. It could be up to a mile, over our heads. So the closer you are, the faster you have to have your shutter speed, because the object is going to be moving faster through your picture frame. So the airplane moving up in the sky super slowly, if you were on the runway right next to it, it would be zooming by, and you would have to have your shutter speed probably at like 1/4000th of a second to freeze motion on that airplane. So the same is true with anything else. You can freeze motion. I would say if you're trying to do a skateboarder, you would probably use bicycle type or runner, depending on how fast they're going. So bicycle race or the running ones. So the further away, the slower your shutter speed can be to freeze motion. If your action is happening is close up to you, then you're going to have to increase your shutter speed, make it faster to capture that motion, to freeze that motion. It's really pretty simple, and this chart will help you. So it has to do with distance and speed. That's it for now. We will see you on the next lecture.